So I'm standing next to this pond, which when I was a kid, when I was in kindergarten, this wasn't a pond, this was a wetlands. I went to elementary school right across the pond there in the weeds, in the woods. That building is still there behind the trees. It's an abandoned building now. It was a kindergarten and an elementary school in the early 60s when I went there. I actually integrated that school. I was the first African American to attend that particular institution. But in those days, none of this around here was here. For example, over here we have the county administration building in Prince George's County in Upper Marlboro. But this pond was a wetlands. And in the middle of this wetlands, when I was 5 and 6 years old going to kindergarten, we kids were fascinated by a giant steam shovel, old technology. Steam shovels haven't existed for a long, long time. These were basically excavation devices that ran on steam power. And we used to play on it right in the middle of the way. We used to play in the wetlands. Then I moved away and I came back to the area. And lo and behold, a big county building sprung up here. And I will say, look at the nutrients in this pond. This is next to the county administration building, which incidentally flooded from this pond just a few years ago, literally flooded the entire first floor. And this pond, which is integrally a part of Upper Marlboro's watery ecosystem, to the extent it replaces the wetlands that used to be here, it's not the most healthy pond I've ever seen. It clearly has some eutrophication problems. And this is, of course, from runoff from the town of Upper Marlboro, from the adjacent uses. So, sad to say, after all these years, while this has become a beautiful landscape feature to the area, it's not a particularly healthy one. It's one that sits right at the seat of government in Prince George's County, and yet it lacks some of the protections that are needed in order to keep it as a living water resource. As much as I know that people fish here, I would bet you there's very little oxygen in this pond right now because of the amount of heat that is picked up and the lack of depth that's in the water, and of course from all the stuff that drains into it. And you couple that with summer heat and you end up with a very low oxygen source for fish that want to exist in it. But my point is, to those of us incarcerated in kindergarten back in the early 1960s, everything in the wetlands looked much more interesting than what was going on inside the school. And so for me, there's a connection here between my upbringing in this area, on this particular river, on this wetlands that has now been landscaped and drains, as it always did, to the Patuxent River. And of course the mystery of whether that steam shovel is still out there, because it probably is buried out there somewhere in the middle of the old wetlands.